struck him out.
2 balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. This is one back. Walk him up. Chris Taylor.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today by Scott Geirman because some breaking news. The Dodgers have finally started things, Scott. It's an appetizer. It's not the entree, but Tommy Edman, utility infielder slash outfielder, and reliever Michael Kopech coming to Los Angeles are the reports. We'll get into the cost. Miguel Vargas reportedly being sent out, as well as a few other prospects. But Scott, let's just start with the headline. The breaking news comes across eventually that it's Edman and Kopech coming to Los Angeles. What are your immediate thoughts and reactions?
You know, a lot of what's up, Jeff. Good to have you back, man. Guys, this is a lot of what Blake and I talked about last night. People are, getting up in arms at why aren't they making moves? And we just stress that there is a lot of time every single year. When you get closer to the deadline, all this stuff starts to crunch. Prices are high right away. And then once teams start to get more realistic, you start to attack more refined targets. This is where you get these deals start trickling out. 3-team deals in the works. A lot of these things, it's just different, I would say, in years past that there's not so many leaks, not so many rumors right now. So a 3-team deal gets struck between the White Sox, Dodgers, and Cardinals, and here we are. But immediate thoughts about the players. Tommy Edman, Michael Kopech. We spoke last night that it's about raising the floor of, getting a utility man, and Tommy Edman. This is someone who is a league average hitter. He's not going to, if he has some pops here and there, that's great. But his baseline has been a very solid league average guy. Utility man with an elite glove at multiple positions, shortstop, second base, center field. So when he's back, when he's healthy, that's someone that's going to just slot in exactly what the Dodgers love to have. Michael Kopech, Jeff, his stuff, his data is terrific. Otherwise, he's an electric arm. But walk issues have been a big problem, and I think it's just the Dodgers are going to find a way to figure him out. I love what he brings, high velocity arm, high octane, and it shows me, it reinforces what we all see. They know they need to make these moves. They're going to, these upside plays, they're getting right into them.
Yeah. Let's start with Edman, because I think this is the biggest name. This is the biggest impact as far as a guy who is quality. It's funny that Daniel and I recorded a video that went up about an hour ago talking about all the targets. I joked with Matt when we scheduled it. I said, I think Edman's going to be a Dodger by the time we actually record anything. Sadly, It was about 45 minutes after we recorded. But this is a guy that Daniel and I talked about. You kind of mentioned it. League average hitter, elite defense everywhere. And, just to go into that, 310 innings in center field last year. He's played 396 innings at shortstop. Second base, his primary position throughout his career, also has 570 career innings at third base. But here's the kicker. A positive outs above average defensive run saved and UZR at every single one of those positions. He is literally average or above at 4 positions and critical positions, second, shortstop, third, and center field, all of which are positions that the Dodgers have questions about. I joked with Daniel, Scott, the Edman deal feels like basically the biggest, most safe insurance policy the Dodgers could have. This is an insurance policy in case Max Muncy doesn't come back. It's an insurance policy in case Gavin Lux, the mirage that we've seen is just a mirage and he's going to go back to being one of the worst hitters. It's an insurance policy if Pages and or Outman never figure it out in center field. It's also an insurance play for next year, which we can get into as far as he gives the Dodgers a shortstop if they don't want to put Mookie Betts there. And so I think that's the beauty of Edman and the reason why he and Nico Horner, another guy we talked about who I assume they're not going to pursue. I just liked the idea of they may not be an obvious, like, here is their role moving forward. Here's where they're going to hit all of that. But he just, he's going to make an impact because there are so many what ifs out there, and he basically could be an answer to every single one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly what you said. And plus he has another year of control. I'm excited about Tommy Edman, man. For what he brings. I'm excited that he's, by all accounts, his rehab's going fine. He's coming off an injury, but that extra year of control, just like you said, buys them that time. And it shows that they just want a little bit more defensive versatility on this team. So for what he ever brings offensively, he doesn't strike out. His baseline stuff is a little bit below league average. He's about I would say for his career, he's a 99 WRC plus all combined, which is fine. And for what this Dodgers team needs right now, for what they like, he brings a switch hitting, bat to the lineup. And who can hate on way above league average glove.
Yeah, better from the right-hand side, which we know against lefties, that's been kind of a bugaboo for the Dodgers historically, especially where their lineup is at. And so there's some value there. Looking at the Savant page, doesn't whiff, doesn't strike out. So again, if you're just talking about the type of profile you would want in a bat at the bottom, that's kind of it. Like, okay, if we're not getting an elite hitter, at least give me a guy who's going to be able to put the ball in play, move runners over, be a professional hitter, that kind of thing. He is 63rd percentile in expected batting average, so there might be a little something there as far as the hit tool. This isn't like a total zero. When we talk about league average, keep in mind, like where league average, that means he's better than 50% of the hitters in Major League Baseball, which is not nothing when we're talking about somebody sliding in the 7, 8, 9. Real quick on Edman. I mean, if you had to make a prediction of where this guy plays for the Dodgers a month or two from now, like, would you project him at third base and Max Muncy doesn't come back? Are you projecting him to be the starting center fielder? Heck, are you projecting him at shortstop and Mookie Betts is the starting center fielder? I think all of the things I just mentioned are very much in play.
I mean, he played a significant amount of innings last year in center field, outfield last year, 355 innings, for a utility guy. That's a fair amount. That's 50 games worth. So, 43 starts in the outfield. I would be, hard pressed to say if it's shortstop, then I love it. That just provides versatility there. But then it's now, what do you do with Gavin Lux? What do you do with Mookie Betts? But it gives them the option where it's not one or the other. It's not, if Gavin Lux is at second base, Mookie Betts has to play short, or however you want to slot that in. If Gavin Lux is comfortable somewhere else, if they want to move it around, I would say center field. Yeah, I would say it gives them a plus center fielder. I'm okay with it. And I think a lot of people, you take a look into his metrics and what he's done. Mike, I know I see you. He hasn't played a year, but it's just, you can look at his defense. I don't think the defense is going to slump just because he hasn't played. So at the very least, guys, the Dodgers are getting a very, very, solid defender right on this team. Switch hitting bat who's going to, show up more times than he's not.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, to the people's point, he has not played this year. He's 8 games, I believe, into a rehab assignment. So he's on the verge. Obviously, the Dodgers must be comfortable with the ankle injury he's coming back from in order to make this trade. He is under team control next year as well. So $9.5 million. Again, I think the headline for me on Edman, to answer some questions, no, this isn't the needle mover. This isn't the, okay, now we're fine deal. It's why I call it an appetizer to what we hope is the main course. But this trade, and we'll get to Kopech here in a second, it solves a lot of the Dodgers' problems because, again, the beauty of Edman is, think about where the Dodgers are at right now. They have to make all their trades in the next 24 to 36 hours, right? They don't know for sure what Max Muncy's long-term health is going to be. They don't know whether or not Gavin Lux is going to continue hitting. They don't know if they're going to find something in either Outman or Pages that they feel somewhat decent about in center field. What Edman does is he gives them insurance on every single one of those what ifs. Like, if Muncy doesn't come back, boom, you've got a third baseman. If Lux starts to suck, boom, you've got a second baseman. If Outman and Pages suck, boom, you've got a center fielder. And best case scenario, if all of those things happen, if Muncy is back and Lux is still hitting and Outman either figures it out offensively or Pages figures it out defensively, then Edman just becomes this Swiss Army knife that can fit in all of these different places. Maybe then it's Edman, in left field or something like that, and Mookie Betts at shortstop. There's so many options for what they could do. And I think if you're trying to play the what if game, Tommy Edman is the answer to the what if game.
And what team loves versatility more than the Dodgers, especially, when CT3 was at his peak, it was defense all over. Like, he provided the plus bat. Yeah.
Totally. So that's what when Daniel and I talked, that's the thing, right? Imagine Chris Taylor at his peak. Like, that's kind of what it's a little bit less offense and a lot more defense, basically Edman, but that's who they're hoping to get. And a guy who has a track record. I mean, a couple of years ago, this guy was in the MVP discussion because his defense was that good and the wins above replacement number was that high.
Yeah, and also real last thing before, we see people in chat, this isn't the big move. Like, the trade doesn't suck. We see people saying, not getting overly hyped about it. This is a move. Like, Blake brought up a point that he loves this regardless. But if it's the third move you make, then this is ideal. We've complained, like, people have talked about the bottom of the order mix and where do you slot these guys and where the heck do you, plop in Kike, Gavin Lux, Kevin Biggio, and Chris Taylor, Andy Pages, and Miguel Vargas. Where does he play? Now he's gone. Now you have somebody who you can slot in. You don't have to worry about them defensively. So this is a move that, on the peripherals. And let's get him healthy, get Tommy Edman back, still on that rehab process here. And it's exactly it. It fills out that mix where you don't have question marks defensively, guys. So that's why you should like this trade. I'm not saying you have to love it, but this is a move on the, the under the surface that you're going to notice it when you don't have a guy out there clanking a ball or miscommunicating in the outfield on a routine fly ball.
Yeah, the Dodgers, we've said all along, they needed to raise the floor and raise the ceiling at the same point. This is the floor raiser. We're going to talk Kopech here. They got a reliever that I think has some value, some unique traits.
Absolutely.
They got a guy in Edman who's going to solidify the bottom of the bench, or excuse me, the bottom of the lineup / top of the bench as well by moving some guys down. And we'll get into cost here in a moment, but I'll be honest, I don't hate the cost. I'll start there, which might be a hot take because Miguel Vargas is the name going out. But I would even say if there's one more move, if they go out and get a Jack Flaherty type starting pitcher, and that was it, like I think that would be, maybe a B+, A- type deadline for the Dodgers. I'm not saying I don't want them to go get 2 more impact bats, but I think if they get one more impact player who's better than both of these guys by a good margin, then I think it's a good place. But let's talk Kopech. He is a relief pitcher. It's a name that many people are probably familiar with, former top prospect. It's a mixed bag, admittedly, Scott. Like you look at the traditional numbers, 5.43 ERA last year with the 1.6 whip. That was kind of as a starter. This year, he's more in a reliever role, 4.74 ERA, 1.35 whip. That's the bad. The good is 99th percentile with the fastball velocity. He throws a 99-mile-an-hour fastball. The expected batting average is 89th percentile. The strikeout rate is 92nd percentile. The whiff rate is 86th percentile. The downside, the walk rate, 7th percent, barrel rate, 4th percent. So this is a toolsy guy that is not a finished product, but holy crap, Scott, if you believe in the Dodgers pitching lab, this is the type of tool that you want to dump into the lab and say, tweak 1 or 2 things. Can we improve control, or can we tweak one pitch here or there? And you could see this becoming a home run. I could see it being a bust and him being a 5 ERA guy, but I could also see this being like, holy crap, Kopech is an absolute menace at the end of games come October.
So he's somebody that a lot of people have talked about, for a bit, about wanting Kopech and being tossed in those discussions via trade. And again, what's up, 2,500 in here? We appreciate you guys. Kopech's usage is kind of varied year to year. And, the White Sox have tried to figure some stuff out, but it's a big fastball. Nothing from him this year is overwhelming wise. None of his pitches really stand out like to the max. He's getting a really fastball heavy just because he's putting himself in bad counts. So I think if the Dodgers are able to find some level of consistency, and for what we've talked about on this show and on, with Blake and I, how the pitching formula that they've had this year and DFA pickups and waiver wire guys, and they brought them in and fixed them and found some, the big bright spots and what their game can bring. There's no reason why anyone should doubt the ability, like what the Dodgers coaching staff, pitching staff, and their organizational philosophy with pitching can do. And I don't care about, you can talk to me about injuries and all that, but I'm talking about their on-field production. Guys who have been brought in from outside. Brent Honeywell, he's been terrific. Anthony Banda, been terrific. Talking about bringing players in. This is someone who's a live arm. It gives them insurance in addition to those veteran arms we've had an issue with in terms of being overused this year. So I'm excited about Michael Kopech. This is you look at the numbers for what they are. People are going to clamor about the ERA. Let's just worry about him getting into the Dodgers organization, working with that staff and going through it. This is a move. Everybody's got to take a breath and look at it for how this can project and understand what the Dodgers have done, bringing outside arms in.
Yeah.
So we don't want to see the freak out. This is good stuff. This is a moldable arm.
Putting it in perspective. Nobody is sitting here and saying Tommy Edman is the answer offensively and Kopech is the answer in the bullpen. We're just saying, given the context of 6 hours ago, people were freaking out because they hadn't done anything. Well, now they've done something, and these are 2 guys who will almost assuredly be contributors on a postseason run. And so that's not nothing, right? And to your point about Kopech, I mean, we'll see what he gets, but what's the number one most important thing that a pitcher can bring in October? Is velocity. Velocity is just the name of the game once you get in October, and this guy throws a fastball as hard, if not harder, than anybody else. We did have a super chat here from Jonathan. As always, we appreciate everybody who's joining us live, but thank you especially to Jonathan for the super chat. He said, Andrew Friedman loves getting injured players, kind of sick of it, referencing the fact that Edman has not played at all this year. Any concern from you, Scott, on the fact that he's missed the entirety of the 2024 season, even if by rehab appearances and whatnot, he appears to be healthy and just about ready to make his 2024 debut?
It just tells me that the Dodgers can't stop here. There's no way that if they're, making an effort to add offensive pieces, this is something that you cannot stop right here. You have to make another move if they're looking for impact, like immediate offensively. This is not the only thing they can do. And it just draws back to the conversation Blake and I had last night, that this is the second or third move that you're making. There has to be something else coming, unless the Dodgers if the front office believes that their offense has enough. I still don't see it, but I like the addition of Tommy Edman when he gets back. Rehab all goes well. We have no reason to believe it's not. But of course, the question marks still have to be there. They're going to be until we see him, on the big league roster. Jonathan, thanks for the super chat. It's definitely something that makes me go, if they're actually looking for more, there needs to be something more. Because I really, and we all, fans, myself, there needs to be a little bit more offensively. So yes, there is some concern, but there needs to be another plus offensive piece coming back. It just provides them with another shot that if Tommy Edman's going to play center field, you're going to get an above average glove, and it's not going to be worrying about having to have James Outman out in center field.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep in mind, Edman's 29 years old, so and he's under team control for another year. Again, we appreciate everybody joining us live. It is, I see a lot of people saying, hey, Tommy Edman is mid. Like, I don't even know if I would disagree with that assessment. I'm just saying, like, look at the guys they've been trotting out there at the bottom. We would take mid compared to a lot of the Kike Hernandez at bats, the Kevin Biggio at bats of the world. This is a dramatic upgrade over those. And so if Tommy Edman ends up being the 8-hitter or the 9-hitter, we're not plugging him into the number 3 or 4 spot in the lineup. Something to keep in mind, while also providing elite defense.
What we can say though is we can't. If Chad wants us to do this, is he mid offensively? Sure, he's league average. If that's mid, that's mid.
Yeah,
but defensively, he's way above mid. So if you want to be right, he's mid offensively, terrific defensively.
Yeah, 300 GJW with the super chat. Blah, Kopech, a nice arm, but we have a bunch of Tommy Edmans already. I agree. We have a bunch of Tommy Edmans. None of them are playing like Tommy Edmans right now. Like, Chris Taylor was one of the worst players in the league. Kike Hernandez has been really bad. Like, I understand the thought of like, hey, we have a bunch of guys like this, but all of those guys are underperforming. All of those guys are dramatically worse than the value that Tommy Edman has consistently provided over the last few seasons. That would be my counter to this. I think they have a bunch of guys they wish were like Tommy Edman, but haven't been. And so now they're going to get him to make sure that they have at least one guy like this, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, they do need to make another, a bunch of Tommy Edmans, but exactly like you said, they're all playing well above it or well below it. Kike's got a 70 WRC plus, Outman 54, Chris Taylor 62. His uptick in performance has kind of leveled off a bit. Andy Paez is showing extreme splits. They need to find guys who are coming up from that group. And it's in the utility man role. So that's just how this is. But I still think that there needs to be some more.
Here's one other stat that's interesting. 89 stolen bases for Edman over the last 3 seasons. So another element of his game that could be valued to the Dodgers is that speed. If you're adding a 30 stolen base guy to the bottom of the lineup, it's just not something they have down there. Just one more piece where if it's defense and it's speed and a league average bat, then so be it there. So again, 300. Thank you for the super chat. Jonathan, thank you to the super chat. The 3,000 people in here live with us on Dodger Heads Live presented by Dodger Blue. We appreciate you all as well. Let's talk about the cost because we haven't gotten to this yet, Scott, and it has changed as reports have come out. Miguel Vargas is the headliner. Jarrell Perez and Alexander Albertus are reportedly in this deal. Noah Miller was initially reported. Jeff Passan has come out and said that Noah Miller is not in this deal. The headliner Vargas, and then we can get to Perez and Albertus, who are guys that I'm sure most people are not super familiar with. I was not surprised to see Miguel Vargas moved by the Dodgers. I was a little shocked that it was in this deal, but as I think about it, it's basically Vargas for Tommy Edman is the way that I see this. I kind of understand it. Edman this year, a year of team control next year, for a guy in Vargas who, yes, former top prospect, has had a better season this year, doesn't really have anywhere to play defensively, so might kind of end up being a designated hitter. This just feels like the going rate. So I guess all things considered, I don't hate the cost here.
No, it's depending how you look at it. What you're getting a couple years.
What's your thought? Like, do you hate the cost here? Do you think this is an overpay?
No, I don't. I really do not. Like, you're getting 2 players with team control past this year. It's what the Dodgers need. Joe Perez, 19-year-old infielder. He's at single A. He was in the futures game. So there's stuff to like there, but I'm not going to get hung up on, 19-year-old prospects. Miguel Vargas, to what you said, did not have a position. Dodgers have tried to move him around second base in his rookie year. Looked okay, got hurt, but it's a spot that you weren't going to keep him there long term. Third base, he wasn't sticking around. They tried left field, and it just hasn't worked out. So new place, new home. They'll figure it out there, and he's got hit tools there. But I'm not going to be hung up on what we see or what we won't see from Miguel Vargas in that time. It's a lot of what the Dodgers do and then what they have in recent years. They don't have the spots in the big league roster to let these young guys play for an entire season. It's unfortunately you perform or you don't. And we've seen it pretty quick here with a lot of these guys that it's a flash and then you don't, and they don't have the time to do that because fans won't stick around and wait for that. So I'm not going to get hung up. This cost is fine. Let's do it.
Yeah. And again, I think all things considered, the biggest piece to remember with Vargas is he doesn't have a position. Like they've tried him in the outfield. It's been a mess. That tells you what they think of him at third base and at second base, that they've refused to go back there. I know they had talked about getting him some reps at third base, but we saw this with Willie Calhoun a number of years ago. We saw it with Michael Busch last year. There's a lot of teams that have capacity to take on a guy like Miguel Vargas and rotate him in some places. It's just not the Dodgers. They have Shohei Ohtani, who's going to be a DH every single day. And if he's off, they have 3 other guys that they'd love to get a spot there. So they just don't have room for him. And they didn't see him as a contributor this year. They view Edman obviously as an upgrade over him this year as well as next year. And so sometimes that's the cost of doing business. Let's talk Perez and Albertus. I texted Justin Lorber and messaged Bruce Kuntz from Dodgers Digest as well, just to get a sense of like, hey, how do you value these guys? It was interesting. Justin texted me back that Albertus was the guy that he thinks is the best prospect going out in these trade. He had him tentatively in the back end of the top 20, though. So when we say he's the best prospect going out, he had Albertus, I believe he said, kind of back half of the top 20, closer to 20 than he was to 10. And then Perez behind that. So outside the top 20, I talked to Bruce as well and just sent him a note and said, hey, what did you think of these two guys? He was higher on Perez. He had Perez in the same spot. He had Perez in the back half of the top 20, but again, closer to 20 and 10, although he said he wouldn't be surprised if some people had Perez as high as number 10. So, I mean, look, all these numbers, what does any of that mean? To me, it just means if you're dealing guys outside of the top 10 organizationally, I'm not going to lose sleep over it, Scott. Is
dice rolls. Like anyone, like if anybody's complaining about it, it's the same people that talk about how you don't want them to hold on to prospects that are just all dice rolls. These are going to be big league contributors. You're getting Kopech. If anyone was tired of the big league roster, these are moves where you can, shed the dead weight, guys who you wanted off the roster, and go from there. So Tommy Edman, once he's back, you can figure it out from there. Kopech's going to slot right into the bullpen, a very tired bullpen. Yeah. And you're not just getting some mid-arm where this is someone with a live arm. Let's figure it out, get him in there. He's going to have success, if and when the Dodgers find that stuff with him. And I'm sure they already have. There's a reason why they targeted him. So I'm juiced on it. I'm not going to say this is the A+ trade. This is a fine deal for the Dodgers. Yeah. This is just a fine deal for the Dodgers.
Yeah, and I think like the term prospect huggers gets thrown around sometimes. And I've definitely been sort of guilty of that, or at least accused of it at times. And I think this is where there becomes a difference. Like, it's one thing to be a prospect hugger on River Ryan or Justin Robleski or some of the guys that we've actually seen up at the big league level, even in 2 or 3 starts, and feel like, man, you can see how this plays out. I think Perez and Albertus are the types of guys where at some point you got to trade somebody. Like, there's guys that I would like to trade, guys that I would not like to trade. And these are definitely 2 of the names where it's like, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Am I bummed? Do I think Perez, as a really young guy who was in the futures game, like, could there be something there? Of course there could, but you have to give something up in order to get something. They didn't sort of wet any of the powder that they had. If they wanted to go get a Jack Flaherty or even a Garrett Crochet, none of these guys are names, I imagine, that would have been in that. Although, just interestingly, as I say that out loud, like, is a Crochet deal completely off the table in your estimation? Given that the Dodgers just made a trade with the White Sox, but it didn't include him or Robert?
No, so we'll start in here. They make we'll call it a B trade. This is a fine trade. It's nothing crazy. It's just going to, upgrade you in some spots that were necessary. Okay. A lot of I'm not going to say a lot of traction. There has been some rumblings about the Braves and Crochet, which provides them with insurance that's if Max Fried leaves in the offseason. So that's an arm that they can target. If we know how Anthopoulos works over there, he's able to sign these guys up, pennies to the dollar, essentially. So that's a move that if the Braves are able to pull that off, there is some, want there from them. There is a need with the Atlanta to make a deal like that. But for the Dodgers, it's not off the table. And they said they weren't scared about it, but considering the contract that Crochet wants, essentially, or supposedly said he wants prior to coming into the year or like into the trade season, for me, are you okay with that? Are you even okay with doing that?
With the cost for Crochet?
Signing on to a trade, because Crochet said, it's like an extension. So that's something that you have to hype up or have to, get hammered out at the deadline to even appear essentially on the team. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. I know the Dodgers said they're not going for it, but that's why and I see everybody in chat talking about it. Let's look at Jack Flaherty and go from there, because people are talking about his back. He's been fine. He missed maybe 2 starts. Once they figured that out, he's been dialed in. So Jack Flaherty is still, if they're not, like, I never thought Schoolball was a possibility. If Crochet is not going to happen, Jack Flaherty's got to be number 1.
Yeah.
Got to be.
I like Flaherty. I like Flaherty at the expected cost more than I like Crochet. Mm-hmm. A guy saying I won't pitch in October unless I get an extension. Like, I'm not even talking about attitude. Like, we don't need that in our clubhouse culture. Like, I don't like the lack of confidence he has in the health of his arm. Like, if that's what you're saying, it tells me everything I need to know about how you feel about your own arm. And I said it this morning. Good for you. Make a business decision. Get yourself paid. Get yourself taken care of. All of it. I'm good with it. But, like, if we're looking at this not from your selfish perspective, but from the Dodgers perspective, I don't want to sign up for that if it's going to cost me River Ryan and Dalton rushing in order to go get it, So that's just my 2 cents. We do have another super chat here from Richard. Another person not happy. What kind of BS move is this? We already have enough injured basket cases. Feels like another Lance Lynn deadline. God help Andrew if this is it. Look, if this is it, we will be on here tomorrow at 3:05. We're going to be doing a live show from 2 p.m. to about 3:15, 3:30, leading up to the deadline, and then sort of recapping anything that happens last minute. It'll be me. It'll be Scott. It'll be Daniel. I can tell you the vibes are not going to be positive if this is the only thing that happens between now and then. But like, if this teaches us anything, Scott, we were saying the same thing last night, and then they made a move. Like, do we need to let this breathe for 36 hours before we crush Andrew Friedman for what he does or does not, might or might not do?
Richard, we appreciate you, man. Thanks for always being here. Thanks for the $5. This is a start. Mr. Classic, I see you in there. Yeah, this is a start. Everyone was talking about no moves. The first move announced isn't always going to be the biggest one, and then the trickle down happens.
Yeah.
These are setup pieces. Everyone, if you look at the rest of the roster, floor raisers, that's what it is. Your entire lineup can't be 110, 120 WRC plus guys. Yeah. You need those star defenders. And a lot of teams, you'd be fine with, Gold Glove caliber defense in just, below average bat. And that's what the Dodgers got here. Because there's been so much trouble in center field defensively. Mookie Betts hasn't been good at shortstop. So on those days where he's not at shortstop, you're going to get a above average defender, Gold Glove defender, center field, same thing. You can play both spots. He's done it. So this is a floor raiser for me. And it's something that they've needed. So that's how I'm looking at it. It's not going to be spectacular. Anyone pulling up his stats, he hasn't played. Look what he's done in his past. Look at what has made him a valued player. It's his glove with a league average bat. I'm not saying it's a BS move. Absolutely, there's going to be questions about his health because he hasn't played this year. But the back of the baseball card shows that he has a baseline. So it's a good start. So Mr. Classic in chat, we appreciate that. He's, Andrew Friedman is starting it. And there's been rumblings out there. Cost and return. That's how Friedman does it. This is when the organizational speak comes from Brandon Gomes. They're going to be opportunistic about trades, and stuff's going to keep coming all the time. It's going to keep breaking. So this isn't it. This isn't the end. Like, there's going to be more coming down. And I hope it's Jack Flaherty. I think for a successful deadline for me, there needs to be a front end rotation guy. And if you're able to pull Jack Flaherty, let me ask this. I'll ask you.
Yeah.
Garrett Crochet is still the number one That's who it is. And the Dodgers don't want to deal with the contract thing. I'm going all in on Jack Flaherty.
Yeah,
I'm just
I mean,
pivoting
I've said
straight
it.
away.
Given cost, I would prefer Flaherty to Crochet. Like if you said, hey, they're either going to pay 110 cents on the dollar for Garrett Crochet, knowing the cost of that is going to be higher, or 110 cents on the dollar for Flaherty. For me, it's all day, every day, Jack Flaherty, because I know what I'm getting this year, and that's what my focus is. And if Flaherty pitches well, like I don't doubt the Dodgers' ability to re-sign him. He's from here. If they want to pay him the extension they were going to give somebody like Crochet, then they'd have the money, they'd have the cost. And so for me, if given the choice between those two, I'm like 100% on Flaherty. It sounds like you are too, and I think Daniel is as well.
You've heard me yapping about Jack Flaherty for over a month.
Yeah.
So I've loved what he brings. I think he's been terrific for 2 seasons. And it's right now the market is playing right into that. So we hope.
Here's Alden Gonzalez with kind of the final framework of this trade. 3 teams, 7 players. The Dodgers get Tommy Edman and Michael Kopech. The Cardinals get Eric Fetty and Tommy Pham. The White Sox get all of the Dodgers prospects. So Vargas, Albertus, and Perez all end up in Chicago. Real quick, do you want to pour one out for Tommy Pham, potential Dodger? You and Blake, I know this was your guy. Like, are we feeling okay to know that he was in the trade but not coming to LA?
I'm surprised you didn't ask me about Miggy V. I'm really surprised because you and I were
all your guys mixed in at one place. Vargas leaving, Pham not coming. Like this is, in some ways, this felt like it was potential to be a tough moment for you.
Yeah. It's Pham for his postseason moments was a target. And he's at early on in the year before stuff started to average out, he didn't have extreme splits. And it's a guy in a 1-year deal that everywhere he's gone, he's kind of just been hitting. So he goes back to St. Louis. Friendly place for him. He'll be fine. Miguel Vargas, though, I'm okay with it. I really am. The Dodgers have a way to find a spot for a lot of these players that just don't have pieces. I think there's a lot more beneath the surface with the Michael Busch thing. So that's one I kind of leave out of the conversation. But it's like if you don't have a spot defensively, the Dodgers, how much can you really be used? Miggy V's poor defensive moments have shown up in lack of communication. Ridiculous routes and running in a squiggly line. So we see the issues with Miguel Vargas. Goes to the White Sox. Their timeline is way pushed back than the Dodgers. So there's not going to be as much pressure. So I won't be surprised if he finds, some runway with his bat and he starts to break out. So, tough day for me.
Somebody said we got the wrong Tommy. Do you agree with that? Like if given the choice between Edman and Pham, would you prefer Edman or Pham?
It's a good question. It could be reversed. The Dodgers do need to find an outfielder.
Yeah,
they do.
I mean, based on trade cost, you can say it's clear that Edman was the more valuable of the 2 assets based on what the Dodgers had to give up and kind of how this all shook out. Because I think Fetty was probably the most expensive piece in this deal, just as a starting pitcher who's cost controlled for another year pretty affordably. He was the guy that Daniel mentioned this morning as somebody he would like. And I think Kopech is probably pretty clearly the least valuable piece that's being moved in this trade as far as the 4 major leaguers. So it's just interesting. I'd prefer Edman for the versatility, just because I think the Dodgers are trying to plug holes. They don't know where they'll be yet. And so Edman is the Swiss Army knife, whereas Pham obviously has a very defined role and one that would have been helpful, but not one that was guaranteed to necessarily be the biggest need come a month or 2 from now.
I still would have loved Eric Fetty.
I'm with you. You could have given all 4 of these guys to the Dodgers, and I think we would have been happy, right?
Yeah.
Fetty and Pham both felt like they would have filled some needs as well. So it's just funny to see those guys moved in a trade involving the Dodgers when you're
can't be it, though.
Dodgers
let's you and I just go out here and just look at everybody watching almost 4,000 across all platforms. This can't be it. There will be more. We expect there to be more. More is going on right now. It's on Twitter. We're not on here keeping tabs. We're doing our best we can, keeping one eye on one eye on the other. But this cannot be it. But it's a start. So let's be encouraged there that they are doing things. Friedman is not asleep.
Believe it or not. Jonathan with another super chat. Pham and Fetty for Edman. What a fleece by St. Louis. I mean, again, this tells you the value that the league has on a guy like Tommy Edman. That I think, admittedly, like this is something I've found interesting, Scott, and you touched on this earlier, so you're ahead of me on this. We don't have categories to quantify solid defense when we talk about players. Like 90% of our evaluation of a player is looking at the box score offensively. that we look at the weighted runs created plus, we look at the average, we look at the home runs, whatever the numbers we like to look at are, we just look at that and we say, come on, how good could this guy possibly be? He's league average offensively. And we don't have a way to normalize and quantify a guy who is an average to elite defender at 4 different key, difficult to play positions across the diamond. Obviously, the extra year of team control for Edman matters here, whereas Pham, I believe, is a free agent at the end of this year. Fedde, another year of team control, whereas Fedde was in Korea a year ago for context. So it's a smaller sample size. Mm-hmm. But I mean, Edman, again, was a 5.3 wins above replacement player in 2022. Like, that's a huge number.
Yeah.
That's a huge number. So I think that's the piece to me that I'm guilty of as well, is quantifying the defensive value that Edman brings. It's hard for us to do in a sport where like all of the focus is on offense.
People won't love it just looking at offensive numbers because that's what they see, but dive under the surface. And there's, a lot to like about what Tommy Edman brings. The floor is not low, but it's just a good spot where his ceiling and his floor baseline. He's baseline guy. You know what you're getting. He doesn't vary. He doesn't strike out much. I enjoy what he brings. I think he's going to be a solid Dodger.
I know this might not land given the context of everything right now, but I remember when 2 years ago when Lux was kind of having his best possible season, 2022, I believe it was. And the number of times that we would come on a live post game and say, man, having a guy like that in the 9-hole is so valuable to get on base right in front of Mookie and Ohtani and Freddie and Will Smith and all those guys. Like, if you just frame Tommy Edman as taking that spot, and Lux was better offensively in 2022 than I think we're expecting Edman to be. But again, just frame it as, okay, he's going to bat 9th. He's going to be 40 points better in weighted runs created plus than the guys that we've had hitting 9th. He's going to play elite defense. He's going to solve a bunch of needs defensively and be flexible. Like, if you just frame it in that context, then I think you start to see the real value that a guy like Tommy Edman brings. And again, I can't say this clearly enough. Scott and I do not think this is a home run trade. We do not think that this has solved all of the answers. We're just saying, are the Dodgers pretty like a good deal better today than they were yesterday? And we think the answer to that question is yes. Do they help themselves for October by making this trade by a good margin? I think the answer is yes. They haven't made themselves favorites, but I think this is a helpful move. So again, we do have one more super chat here from Cordenas. I am happy with the trade. A switch hitter that plays great defense at 4 different positions for little cost. This gets the ball rolling for something bigger. I think that's exactly it. Friedman can now focus entirely on the next move. He doesn't have to be juggling, hey, how do we get this floor-raising move? How do we add an arm? How do we add a utility guy while also trying to trade for a starting pitcher? Now he can just put all his eggs in the basket of Jack Flaherty, Tarek Skubal, whoever the big fish is out there that they want to go and get. All focuses on that. They don't have to worry about also trying to pull the strings and balance prospect costs with these other deals. So, Cordenas, I think you've summed up pretty well where I land on this trade ultimately.
There's been a ton of usage currently on the bullpen.
Yeah.
And it's been exaggerated by the lack of depth from the starting pitching. Kopech adds another arm to the mix. There needed to be reinforcements. Reinforcements had to happen offensively. That'll come from Tommy Edman when he gets back on the field. But in the bullpen, in the immediate, you're getting someone who can slot right in. And they needed the reinforcements there. So however it is, again, to echo what Jeff said, this is not the A+ deal that everybody hopes every single one that the Dodgers make is. This is one of those moves that's a necessary trade that'll help you in key spots on the roster that we're in desperate need of stuff with Evan Phillips, going through his issues with the aging of the bullpen. And there are a lot of veteran, a lot of miles on those arms. Daniel Hudson, Blake Trinan, tons there. Vesia, we don't know. He had his velocity, his stuff was down across the board yesterday. Comes in, first pitch, immediate homer. So this is somebody in Kopech who is a moldable arm, who has a lot of big time stuff. So it's something that we can be happy about, not ecstatic about. We can be happy that they're working to address these things, because paying for a big time reliever, you saw what the Padres gave up for one reliever, 3 solid prospects, nothing crazy. Just, those years of control matter. So going with a guy like Michael Kopech, who the only issue he has right now is getting the ball in the strike zone. But by all accounts, I think what the Dodgers can do is they're going to figure it out with him. And we should have no reason to doubt the Dodgers pitching philosophy and what they've got cooking right now, just because of the guys that they've brought back.
Yeah. On that note, real quick, you mentioned Kopech. I've said all along, as bad as the Dodgers bullpen has been at times, it also has the potential, when you look at a bunch of names who are injured, to be pretty full at some point. So you're adding Kopech. Joe Kelly is back. Gratterall working his way back. You've got some of those other arms. And then who knows what the bullpen in the postseason looks like. If there's not a rotation spot for a guy like Justin Robleski, you could see 100 miles an hour from the left-hand side playing up out of the bullpen as well. So not to say Michael Kopech is not an elite reliever. Let me be clear. But do you still think the Dodgers are going to be in on a Tanner Scott type player, given that they already added an arm here who, look, is not back end, but also clearly it's not like he's free. It's not like this is a guy that we are expecting them to DFA. It's not like a churn guy either. So I'm not saying they've solved all their problems, but I'm also starting to wonder. I don't, and Friedman has said he doesn't like overpaying for relievers. So given history, given this move, I would be pretty shocked, Scott, if the Dodgers added another an impact reliever after this move.
I would be very shocked. That would be so against Andrew Friedman's mold. I don't think that's going to happen. If it does, that'll be the most out of character thing. And it's assuredly a move that in a few years, the return would be, unless all those guys pan out, which usually does not happen, in the immediate, fans would be disgusted at the amount they'd have to give up. Like you'd be looking at like an Aroldis Chapman, Chicago Cubs type deal where I think it was Gleyber Torres when that. Was that deal?
It's a lot of, I mean, even the Estevez deal, the prospects given up were like a top 50 and a top 100 type guy.
So it's just against Andrew Friedman's mold. I don't see that happening again. You just won't. It's happened. The Dodgers have traded for relievers at the deadline a few times, and it's blown up. They usually will buy low or find someone that needs a little bit of fixing, get them in there, and then from then on, the deadline on, you've got a year and a half to work with them. And I see them figuring it out at some point. He can project to a very useful bullpen piece. So again, I agree with you. It'll be very out of character. And it's something I don't see Andrew Friedman doing in terms of going out and getting like a Tanner Scott. It's nice to be interested. If the deal strikes, then it does. But it's a return that I don't see Andrew Friedman meeting the price on.
Do you think like if we were able to sit with Andrew Friedman now with Edman and Kopech in the fold, do you think starting pitching is like far and away the top priority now? Like, do you think going out and adding another position player would even fall under the category of priority? I know we've talked about Luis Robert, a guy who's reportedly potentially available, a Bo Bichette type guy. Brent Rooker's a guy I've thrown. Like, do you think the Dodgers are even still making calls on those types of players? Or do you think they're kind of all in on finding a starting pitcher and putting all their eggs in that basket?
I think a starting pitcher is a must.
Yeah.
I think it's a must because of how many question marks. I can go straight through them. Clayton Kershaw has looked fine. Yeah. But looking at the rotation, you're asking Clayton Kershaw, Gavin Stone, Justin Robleski, River Ryan, Yamamoto, if he's healthy and can come back, Bobby Miller, Walker Buehler, a lot of these question mark guys.
Yeah,
like relying on rookies is bad business unless they show it until they show it in the playoffs.
Yeah,
it's tough. It's tough to really project them. Yamamoto, we have no idea. Long contract. They're going to softball that. They're going to treat him with baby gloves as they should.
Yeah,
he's a big investment. Walker Buehler, he's had a weird process coming back to the organization. Bobby Miller, if we see him. Clayton Kershaw's running on his last leg, hunting for 3,000 strikeouts. I believe in him, but they do need a starting pitcher. There cannot be a repeat performance in the postseason like there was last year, where it's like Lance Lynn is starting a playoff game and it was over before it started in each game. That I don't know if that's ever happened. I never want to see it again. If they shy away from offense and they go starting pitching, I need that to be the case. There cannot be another performance like that. They cannot just expect a ton of injury return guys to carry the load.
Let me rephrase that question, because I agree with everything you just said. If the Dodgers don't add another offensive player, will this be a bust of a trade deadline?
That's a good question. Yes, there needs to be. I think they need another bat. I think they need one more bat.
Is it like an Edman level? Like if they get another guy who's just sort of a league average upgrade in the outfield, let's say he's just a better option out there compared to Outman, Pages, Hayward types. Like if it's just that and a starting pitcher of some sort, like if that's the rest of it, are you giving a thumbs up on this deadline?
I think they need another. I'd give it a thumbs like sideways because
Okay.
that's not. I need it to be. This is with the expectations coming into the year for all the stuff, Jeff, we've talked about. You and I have, gone back and forth about a lot of things. There needs to be another consistent piece on the team. Strikes back to Tommy Edman concerns. If there's any setback, then we've got a problem, big problem. And I don't think even him alone, like you're asking, just a league average, below league average, slightly offensive piece, that's not enough. So again, my view still stands. They need to find an impact. What the Dodgers have said, they've looking for impact. That's for me. My mind has been on that. And I think there needs to be impact add offensively. There needs to be an impact lead or impact pitcher to the front end of the rotation and go from there. I know it sounds a lot, but for the expectations the organization put on us and put on the fans, put on the team with all the big signings and with the way the league has played out, it's got to be now. They need to do it.
It's funny because you can imagine the Dodgers knowing how unlikely it is, but projecting out and saying, hey, there is a world where Muncy is back, where Lux is productive offensively, and where Edman slots into center field, and you've got Mookie Betts, and then you've got sort of, the Chris Taylor platoon out in the outfield somewhere, Teoscar and Edman, and all of a sudden that lineup looks good. The problem is like you'd have to be batting 1,000 on everything going right. You'd need Muncy back. You would need Taylor to stay hot. You would need Lux to stay hot. And you would need all these other things. So I think there's a world where they don't need another bat, but as all of us as Dodger fans know, none of us would want to bet on that. We would all say, give me the extra bat and we'll figure the rest out later, which is, I think, where the Dodgers are at. And so, it'll be interesting. One note that I think is worth mentioning, then we'll take a couple questions and log off here. Again, thanks to the 4,200 people on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube combined joining us live. Greatly appreciate it. One of the biggest shows we've ever had. And hey, I'm expecting some bigger shows in the next 24 to 36 hours. One thing that I do think needs to be mentioned, and it's weird to talk about now, it's not nothing that both Edman and Kopech have another year of team control beyond this year. I do think that needs to be mentioned as part of the discourse. These aren't the typical just rental guys. They will both be Dodgers both this year and next year. And so when we factor in the cost and the value, etc., especially with a guy like Edman and the positional versatility to play shortstop included, I know for you that's a huge deal, and it can't be ignored.
Absolutely, it buys you some time for a long-term answer, and we talked about that all year. About all the times that we were trying to force feed, Willy Adames down everybody's throat, that the Brewers would somehow tank or they would sell when they're still competing. It buys them another year that you can have someone that they can rely on defensively, that you don't have to force Mookie Betts to play a position that wasn't in the plans. You're getting someone with a glove that has a little bit more upside offensively than Miguel Rojas. So it's something that they could do. And it was all about just finding another, like a placeholder. And if they didn't like the long-term options, Paul DeYoung, if they didn't like Willy Adames or Ha-Seong Kim, if they didn't want to hand that out there, it's just buying them some more time at the shortstop position, because premium guys that we've seen it when the Trey Turners, Corey Seagers aren't in the organization, it's slim pickings. You don't, how many people would have been comfortable giving out a superstar deal to Dansby Swanson?
Yeah.
So it's a matter of just, looking ahead and buying them some time there for that long-term option. So at the very least, it fills a need for the now. It fills a need for next year. So yes, to what you said, and everyone wondering if the team control is a little bit too much. I'm going to just let you know again, it's filling a need for now and towards next year at a very premium infield position.
Yeah. I'm with you. And look, they do have, Alex Freeland, I believe. Sorry if I'm blanking on missing up the first name, but they do have a shortstop prospect who's having a breakout year, I believe, down at AA, single A, AA, somewhere in that range. So he's a guy who's going to be a top 5 organizational prospect when lists start to come out. And so just keep an eye on him as a guy that this kind of builds a bridge to. If he continues his ascension, he might be the answer in 2 years. But at least now, between Edman, Mookie, however they want to jigger all that, they've got some options there. So, all right, let's take a couple questions here, and then we'll be off. As always, we'll be hopping back on if there's another move or another trade. But if you've got any questions, go ahead and throw those in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer some of those. TQT with a great question here. If Betts and Muncy are healthy, then where does Edman play? The obvious answer seems like center field, but I'll leave open the door that you want to pencil in a Gavin Lux regression and put him at second base, Scotty.
No. I mean, we talked about it last night. We gave him Gavin Lux his flowers immediately. He's making believers out of us all. This is a second half Gavin Lux that whatever.
Some of us never gave up, Scotty. Some of us took our lumps and held on to our Gavin Lux stock. I'm not ready to take a victory lap because I'm not ready to believe that he's fully back. But I'll just throw those crumbs out there that some of us held on.
It did. You just needed somebody to separate. We needed some players and, at the, those 5 through 9, 6 through 9 to really separate themselves. And Gavin Lux is stepping up to the plate here. But TQT, thanks for the question. I think that, center field should be the answer. Like if it's shortstop and they find a spot for Mookie Betts or Gavin Lux can play somewhere else. Now we're getting into the conversation. So let's revisit that once Tommy Edman's cleared. But for the moment, center field for him would be great. Yeah. I think that would be an awesome spot for him. Fresh legs, get him out there, get a plus defender. And then you can really see, a continuation of like the same defensive level play you get when James Outman out there, but you're getting more of upside of a bat. So that's that's somewhere where I would play him. But if, they find a spot for him to get him at shortstop and Mookie Betts can play somewhere else, or, they want to give him, I don't know. That's an interesting question there, but, he could maybe play third base, but I'd be hard pressed to say, let's take out a Gold Glove caliber guy and Tommy Edman and not have him at shortstop and put Mookie there and then put him at third. So interesting question, but I would say center field, honestly.
Yeah. I'll flip it. And I think Tommy Edman at shortstop, Mookie Betts in the outfield. That's how I see it playing out. I just think, look, as much
we
as
miss that.
What's that?
I miss Mookie in the outfield. I really do.
Like, I understand the reasons of why the Dodgers have shown they're willing to adapt and adjust. And also, we can all be honest that Mookie Betts is like at best league average at shortstop, and he's probably not that. And so I would much rather put Tommy Edman at short, give me the glove at shortstop, and get Mookie Betts into the field. And if Gavin Lux is hitting the way that he's hitting, he's going to be an upgrade over whoever they could play out in center field offensively, and probably whoever they could play in right field offensively. And so if
that's my point of view on that. That's really,
I feel like Mookie at every step of the way has done whatever the team needs him to do.
Second base was the spot for him. He loved it. That was it. And I think there was some stuff about him wanting to get out of right field. Yeah. So I don't think he would flip out about it, but I think a lot of him wants to play second base.
The fact that he was willing to play shortstop and again, I think we're probably all reading into the quotes. I remember it being maybe a mutual agreement between Mookie Betts and the team to say, hey, we'd love to get him out of the outfield and move him to the infield. I just think, and I just think if you get to, the middle of September and this is the reality and Mookie's back and Lux is still hitting and Edman, then it's like, hey, Mookie, for the next 2 months, go back to play. Hey, we understand the wear and tear. It's only 2 months. It's only a month and a half, right field, center field, whatever it is, because then all of a sudden you've got a plus defender basically everywhere. The way Muncy played defensively at third base, if he's back, which was the question. Lux has been really good defensively at second base. And then if you've got Mookie, he's going to be a plus defender no matter where he plays in the outfield. So it's a great question. Let's do one more here. Ben Kawucha, who's the first DFA, Biggio or Nick Ramirez? I think Nick Ahmed would be the one maybe that I would that might be the making room for Tommy Edman on the roster. What do you think?
I'm going to say Nick Ramirez. I think
he's not on. Is he on the big league roster right now?
Nick Ramirez.
So he might be on the 40.
He's on the 40. Yeah,
but he's not on the 26.
Yeah, okay, so then I'll go
move somebody off the 26.
Nick Ahmed.
Yeah, and I guess they need to move 2. So to this point, it would probably need to be, although it's not going to be Banda and it's not going to be Honeywell, you would think. I guess it would just be sending either River Ryan or Robleski down.
Which is okay. That's totally okay. Like, and we might even see a stint for Vesia. Like, we might even see something go on there. So,
or Hudson or Phillips. I mean, any
Yeah.
of those guys, you could talk me into an IL stint tomorrow.
Yeah, barring any injury news there, let's knock on wood.
There you go.
But I see a lot of people in chat, talking about Flaherty. Real quick to change tunes. Like, Flaherty's gone. But he got pulled somewhere, or he got pulled, or he got
precautionary.
Yeah. So he's going somewhere. So let's get hyped. We might see you guys soon. But he's going somewhere.
Yeah. So here you go. Our Matt or Blake, I think it's Matt that's running this. Edman will replace Vargas on the 26 and 40. So there you go. So we just need a pitcher off of the 40 and off of the 26. So it could be a guy who's not on the 26 who gets outrighted off the 40. And then it could be somebody who's on the 26. Again, right now that's Banda, Honeywell, Hudson, Kelly, Phillips, Trinan, Vesia, Yarbrough are the relievers. But again, it could easily be a starting pitcher that gets sent down as well. So, all right, we got a super chat here, so we'll end on this one. Who's going to hit the ball in October? I believe in Teo. I believe in Showtime. Beyond that, I'm still very scared. What do you think, Scott?
I think we can believe in. I think I want to say we can believe in Freddie. I really do. But for those last 2 years, like, for what he's done in his career, that's a pretty safe bet to say Freddie Freeman in the postseason. So I'm going to go with there. I'm going to say 5. And a quick thing, hope everything's going well with the Freeman family.
Yeah.
Hope his son's doing all right. I don't know if anybody doesn't know in chat, like, their family's going through pretty tough time right now with their son. He's dealing with something. So we want to send our best wishes to the Freeman family. Hope everything's going well there. Yeah, but I'm going to say Freddie.
Look, people hate this, and I'm just going to say it. Mookie Betts, I know how bad he was last year. Let's not forget this guy was really good in 2020 when they went all the way to the World Series and won. He was a 135 weighted runs created plus guy. He was 116 in 2021 as well. So he's just a very good player, and I'm not willing to. I believe in the last 2 seasons when he's been bad, it's 30 plate appearances. So I'm not going to change my mind about Mookie Betts because of 30 bad plate appearances when he had 135 very good plate appearances the 2 years prior. So give me that. And look, I mean, Muncy's had his moments. If he's healthy, that's a big if. Will Smith doesn't feel like he's afraid of the moment. I mean, you could just go down the line.
Big time. Will Smith's had big swings, man. I think he's consistently, I think he's had the most at bats with runners in scoring position for, I think, over a year.
Yeah.
So, that's a guy that's ready for it. Big spot, guys on base, got to drive a run in, shorten up, bat to ball. Big believer in Will Smith. He's just been going through something. I think whatever it is, running on a little bit of fumes here. He might be running into a wall, dealing with something. Yeah, Mike, he is slumping a bit. But I still believe in what he has. He's just had big moments for several years. So that's another nice, easy 2 spot there.
Yeah, and I mean, even guys that we're sort of not hoping are regular contributors, but like Kike's been awesome in big moments. If he's still around, Chris Taylor hit the home run in the wild card game to win it after I crapped all over him for an entire show. So, they've got guys that have it in their back history.
Yeah.
So there you go. Well, hey, everybody, we greatly appreciate it. 4,300 people in here with us live. Again, we will be going live following breaking news like this every single time. So if you have not already, subscribe, ring the notification bell down below. You do not want to miss these live shows. And then, of course, we've got our normal post-game shows every night as well. So Monday night, there's a post-game show tonight. There's a post-game show tomorrow night. As I mentioned, we've got a live trade deadline show scheduled 2 p.m. to about 3:15, 3:30 tomorrow. Me, Scott, and Daniel will be on here reacting to the hour leading up to the trade deadline, as well as breaking stuff down afterwards. So we appreciate you joining us. But that is Scott Geirman. I am Jeff Spiegel. Enjoy the rest of your day, folks. As always, go Dodgers.